Hello, this is Geeske, also known as Gees Voorhees. And this is my lovely assistant Mambo. I studied illustration at the Willem de Koning Academy in Rotterdam and now I'm an illustrator. My clients vary, but my work is always colorful and detailed. Besides drawing a lot, I also love to work with fabric. And I teach a screen printing class at X. Welcome to the first fabric printing tutorial. This one's about making stamps. Here are some examples. Linoleum as a floor material was invented in the late 1800s in England, but not long after it was adopted by artists. They used knives and chisels to carve images into the linoleum and then they printed it. Even Picasso was a big fan. Though you can do many things with this technique, in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to print a repeat pattern on fabric. To do so, here's what you need. This is your linoleum. Make sure that it's not thinner than this. And this is the knife we use to carve the linoleum. Yours might look slightly different, but the idea is the same. You need a pencil that's quite soft, B or HB. I used a roll of chalk paper, but regular printing paper also works just fine. I have my sketchbook here and also some scissors. I made the sketch in my sketchbook that we are going to transfer onto the linoleum. First, I'm going to cut off a small piece of the chalk paper and place it over my drawing. Then I'm going to trace my drawing, putting a bit of pressure while I do that. It will come in handy later if I have a dark line. After I've traced the whole thing, I turn the sheet around and I fill the back of my drawing in with a pencil. I place my little drawing on the linoleum and I try to put it in a corner as much as I can because I don't want to lose or spill any of my linoleum. Then I trace my drawing again, putting lots of pressure with my pencil. In that way, the graphite on the back will be transferred onto the linoleum. As you can see, my drawing is on here. This is your lino cutter, or gouge, and watch out, it's incredibly sharp. When you start cutting, always try to keep your hands away from the line of fire. Just the other day, I stuck the thing under my thumbnail, which was no fun. When I was still in the art academy, I even ended up in the ER once when I wounded myself so badly during lino cutting that I had to get a tetanus shot. So watch out. The cutting itself takes a bit of time, so put on some music and just enjoy the process. Don't try to go too deep in one go, that's when your hand sometimes slips. At least that's what happened to me. I sometimes use a box cutter to make sharp lines. It's not mandatory or anything, but for a cleaner look, it might come in handy. When you are carving, remember the parts that you cut away are the parts that you're not going to print. So really try to picture in your head how you want your stamp to turn out. Now this is the fun one. If you stick the lino cutter in the linoleum and you keep it in place, but you move your linoleum around, you get a really perfect dot, or a tiny circle. A really nice technique you can use for making patterns. So when you're done carving your image out of the linoleum, you have to cut out your stamp. Really try to cut it as close to the edge as you can. It will give you a clean print when you start the stamping. And voila! Here's a stamp of one of my favorite types of shoes. The linoleum itself is a bit greasy when it comes out of the store, so you have to wash it with warm water and soap or the ink won't stick. Weirdly enough, the printing goes a little easier after you've used it a couple of times and it's a little dirty, but the grease? No, it doesn't like that. Of course, I took some carving time before I recorded this tutorial, so I have 5 shoe stamps ready. To make my pattern a bit cohesive, I drew the same style of shoes, cutting away equal parts. Also, all the noses go in the same direction, and all of them have the same width. To start the printing, you need something smooth and not absorbent to roll out your ink. This is just a piece of plastic, but it could also be a plate or a tray of some kind. Your roller will love it if it's flat. The ink roller is not something you have to use. You can also apply your ink with a brush, but the roller really gets the best effect. This one works just perfectly because it doesn't absorb any ink. Then of course you need your stamps and a knife, and you need your ink. We use screen printing ink that is a supercover ink. That means it dries slowly, it is very saturated with color, and most importantly, if you apply it to fabric, it stays beautiful. If you spill it on your clothes, it will come out when you wash them. As you can see, the consistency is also quite thick. You are of course welcome to print on something other than a piece of fabric, but if you do want to try it, choose a fabric that is not too synthetic and not too structured. Your image comes across best when the surface is smooth. I even ironed this one before I started my printing, because I wanted no wrinkles at all. Because this fabric is pretty thin and ink might go through, I put some paper on the table as I have 2 more tutorials to film with this one. Now let the printing begin. Use the knife to smear some ink onto your plastic sheet and start rolling it out. It's best not to roll out a layer of ink that is too thick. Just take small parts of ink and make a bit of a square. Now start rolling the ink onto your stamp, making the layer even and covering every part. Don't put a layer on the stamp that is too thick. And really look closely if you missed any parts. You can go over it again and again. Now gently roll your stamp onto the fabric without moving it. I press the stamp using my lino carver, but you can also do this with a spoon or the backside of a screwdriver. Try to cover every single part of the back of your stamp. It will make your image look so much better. And also, make sure your hands are clean when you remove your stamp or when you touch your fabric. Now start building your pattern. Now you can also do multicolored prints, just using a brush and more colors of ink. Again, don't apply a layer of ink that is too thick. You can also go pretty artistic by painting on your stamp and then using the roller to create a sort of gradient. I could imagine a fat quarter of these. I really like them. When you're done printing, place your stamp and roller in some water. After you've finished your print, you have to heat set it. Simply place a sheet of baking paper on top of the print and then iron it. This makes the ink melt into the fabric, and then it just stays on the fabric forever. Well, it will fade a little bit after washing, but not much. Here's a close-up of the fabric I made, now ready to use. I turned it into a pillowcase, but it could also be a bandana, a pen case, or even a garment if you print more fabric. I hope you have fun with this. I see you on Zoom.